Exactly.
So what
cards
happens
are
when you
valuable.
hit reply to all?
Somebody, about a month ago, somebody set up some kind of email list that was completely wrong. And they sent out, it was something about the state of a kitchen in a German office, in a Sony Music Germany office. And this email went out to probably, thank you very much, to probably 45,000 people.
Dear.
And it's the only time that's ever happened, but genuinely for an hour and a half, my phone was going ping, 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 for all of the people who then replied all to the, I shouldn't be on this list type thing.
Wait, I missed the first part. Did you send that email?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No.
Just checking. I woke up and I was like, my inbox is full. Like hundreds
Yeah. And it was all, I'm not supposed to be on this.
Yeah, I don't think this was meant for me. Can you take me off? And we're like, stop replying to all of this.
It is the only time in my now coming up on 8 years here that that's ever happened to that scale. But
So, yeah, lesson learned.
Well, I hope the tour was good, at least, or somewhat
Very.
good. I think we've got about 60 minutes left on the clock, if that's okay with everybody. Just want to do some demonstrations now, really, of some of our services, products, things that we've actually developed, innovated through customer needs and took to market within the last 12 months. And so I'm going to hand over to Carl straight away. Thank you. Whilst the hot drinks are on the way to warm you back up. Let's make the most of the time.
Cool. Sorry I don't have my cards with me. I thought I had, but I don't have any cards at all with me. So if you need to get in touch, I have your email. I'll send you an email if there's any needs. You'll find it.
That would be great.
I'm going to talk a little bit about TIOS, which is a family of solutions that we've created here in Europe, aimed at the workplace. But like I said, there's a bit of a trickle on of the flow over into higher education as well. I wanted to actually demonstrate some of them here today, but unfortunately we have a few solutions kits in there out of customers, and then also I was going to put a few displays on the network and run some signage and control, but I'm not actually allowed to do that. I found out last week when I was testing in Paris, because Sony's a customer of ours as well, and if I put things, we're not allowed to put kind of products on our on the networks. It's like kind of like intrusive on the network or something. So I'll talk through some slides, and I hope that isn't enough. Just to reiterate quickly, Sony's organization, Stuart went through it this morning, but within the professional solutions, my business group sits within there, called Corporate Education Solutions. We also look after the theatre solutions as well now, which is digital cinema projectors. The Corporate Education Solutions group doesn't just cover those two segments, it also covers automotive and simulation. So here is just a quick overview of the types of customers we work with. And so in higher education, the main solutions we provide are installation projectors, displays, cameras, and more recently active learning solutions like Vision Exchange. In Europe we also have electric capture solution called UBcast. I'm not sure if the US... Yeah. Oh, you do?
Katie is consulting with us for 6 months as we integrate it into America.
Okay, good.
So another company that had an expertise in something that we didn't, and instead of reinventing the wheel, we're right now partnering with UBcast. That could turn into something bigger down the road, but we've been showing it since Infocom and just showed it at EduCars as a Sony solution.
Yep.
And we have the co-founder of the company on contract for 6 months to help us develop the market in the US, and it's a bridge or a platform product with Vision Exchange, so it really works well. You have your active learning classroom system, and then it migrates nicely into the lecture capture component, which then talks nicely to your learning management system. So we have a nice ecosystem, kind of like what we have in the media broadcast world, doing this for education, which is why you guys are part of the forum, to help us understand that.
See, these are some of the universities we work with. We work with a lot in Europe. Corporate solutions. I'll talk to you about those now. Some of our customers. Automotive is mainly focused on the crystal LED, the big high-end Powerwall solution, which maybe you've seen at an event in the US. It's quite incredible. In simulation, and we also have other solutions in here that we're working on. Real-time sharing, color management. They're all aimed at the big sort of high-end automotive design simulations, they're usually flight simulations, helicopter simulations, usually military companies, British Airways, also planetariums we work with there. That's a quick overview, but I'm going to mainly talk to you about this and then how it kind of branches over. And we've won quite a few projects in higher education with the new solution we've developed. Just jump on, I'm not good to... Well, I'll tell you a little bit about where we came with TL. So historically we've been selling Bravia displays and projectors into corporate end users. So we've had good relationships with a whole range of corporate organizations for many years. And then about a year and a half ago, we were spending more time with end users. You know, we were very kind of channel focused, but then we started actually spending more time with end users because we realized, you know, what do schools want? What do the companies really need? Are we just pushing products down the channel that no one wants? You know, how are things changing? And by doing that, we kind of started to have a few like key learnings coming out. And one customer in particular was Prada, and we realized with them that they had all these discrete solutions that weren't really interconnected. You know, one for digital signage, one for video conferencing, one for something else. So the AV and IT manager were juggling all these different solutions, and there was a separate one here, wasn't talking to this one. And they had cables strewn all over the place, and basically we realized that we provide the main kind of device in the office. It's always that display solution, you know, the imaging solution, but there's so much more that we could tie together and add more value to the customer. So we thought, what could that be? So we created originally our first product, which is called TIOS Manage, which I'll talk to you about, which is a full workplace management solution. So that's kind of where it came about. So it's all developed in Europe together with Sony, you know, working with the Bravia team in Japan as well. But it's all created here. So for the moment we're selling in Europe and slowly kind of expanding across the globe. In terms of workplace challenges, these are just some of the key challenges we see with the companies that we're working with. So there's a lot of different stakeholders. When we have a solution that we're creating for an office or workplace, we're working with IT managers who care about security and so on, facility managers who care about workplace design and productivity, the users, employees, visitors who are more kind of focused on the productivity and the output that they're performing. So any solution has to take into all these kind of different profiles into consideration when we do kind of deliver them. There's an increasing focus on performance and ROI, so data collection and analytics is becoming increasingly important to optimize the way you use your office. You know, you have a lot of space and you need to, it's expensive space, especially in places like London, and you need to really make sure that you're using that space to the best of its use. So increasingly, a lot of facilities managers, AV, IT managers are really starting to want to have control of that data to really manage the performance of their property and their people. So this is a key area as well. And technology, it's funny I say that because we are a technology company, but technology often does also create complexity. If you just push too much technology into a room when it's not needed, and people don't actually end up using it, or they use 1% of what it can do, it's also kind of a waste, or it's confusing, and it can cause stress in meetings and so on. So whatever we create, we want it to be simple and encompass all different ways of working. So we came up with TIOS, which is this umbrella family of solutions. So this is our mission. So transforming workspaces for employees and visitors so that working is simplified, collaboration enhanced, and facilities management is optimized. Yeah, so the idea is that we want to simplify workdays from the whole journey through an office, from when you enter the building, as you walk through the common areas, as you go to your office, to your meeting room, to the auditorium. And I'll touch upon each of these one by one quickly. But the idea really is to streamline and make workdays smooth for all the different players involved.
And you said this was relatively new within the last 12 months or so that you've developed it. bridging over into education
Yes.
for classroom scheduling and things like that.
Hugely.
I've
Mainly-
actually had a few universities find out about TIOS just
Yeah.
Google searches and what have you, have asked about it. So
Yeah.
I know we don't currently have it available yet in the United
Yeah.
States, but you know, as it's getting vetted out and
Yeah.
transitioning into education.
And I know my colleague Thomas has been working a little bit with some of your
Mhm.
your colleagues in the US
Yeah, I think
with
ACE,
training and so
yeah.
on. I'm not sure who because I haven't been involved in that, but
Yeah.
he has been working with some of them.
Our team, the B2BLA group from Japan that's living on a 3-year visa, they're actually based in San Jose, so they're really well positioned for San Francisco State. But I know that group has been working with somebody
Okay,
over here
yeah.
and trying to identify how it marries with vision exchange even in
Yep,
the classroom.
yep.
So that's going to be a really exciting addition.
Yeah, these are some of the go ahead.
Sorry, just to interject really. So what's been kind of interesting in the last 18 months or 2 years really is, as a company, for quite some time, obviously we do partner, work very closely with our customers in terms of what we can do with our solutions or products. Japan obviously is our kind of mothership in terms of where everything that kind of is endorsed and comes from. What's changed in the last 2 years is, for example, TIOS is a good example, virtual production will be one later, is they've given powers to regional territories to, Prada in this case, if you've got a customer and we have development capability, it's a team where David sits, to try a POC, just try doing a kind of an agile product development to see if it works. And we've been given license really by Sony Japan to go ahead and do that. And then obviously if that becomes a successful product, we take a step back and say, oh, should we productize this and take it to market? As opposed to everything that used to come straight from Japan, this is our Sony product, if you want to buy it, we can adapt it. We've now had the capability to say, no, we've actually had innovative ideas, or we've got a customer who wants it, we've got resource to help us make it. We work with the customer, and then obviously as a business we go, oh, actually there may be other customers who could benefit now, and then we take it to market. So when I said in the last 12 months, these are brought to market in the last 12 months, these products.
Yeah,
So.
that's
And we start with the idea, with obviously our territory, because we know it very well, we know where it's made, and then obviously expand that to global territories as under the Sony brand.
And you can react quicker when we are kind of in control, and Japan lets us be in control locally. So this is one good example. A lot of the sub-solutions within TIOS have actually come from end users themselves. They've said they needed something, and we just developed it for them within the project. For example, this is one of our solutions is a virtual reception solution, because it's called TIOS Reception. We have Android tablets, touch tablets, so you could have a 15-inch or a 22-inch, and the idea is that then it would be their reception to provide a really easy-to-use, intuitive way to check in. So when people turn up, there's solutions like that. You check in, it notifies your host, they get a text or an email instantly, and this, if you have a big, kind of huge queues of people checking in to different parts of your premises or your organization, or you don't want to have receptionists at every different building where you have people working or studying. This is a really great solution, and this came from a customer in Denmark called Others who wanted a virtual reception solution, and then within 3 months we're able to turn around not 3 minutes, that'd be amazing. 3 months we're able to turn around.
You had the idea in 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seconds.
Just like that.
Yes.
But basically, it's all of these kind of the templates and the background is customizable. So in the main solution, TIOS Manage, which I'll show you in a second, you can customize all of this. Any look and feel, the design, the buttons, everything. So if you wanted to have your own school branding, you can have your imagery, your colors, your logo, whatever you want there. You can customize different pages. If you want to have terms and conditions pages in there, if you want to connect it to a printed or printed badge, that's all possible as well.
Does this also operate with an EMS and emergency communication system of some sort?
That's connected to all of this is controlled by this one solution, TIOS Manage, but our signage is all the one platform. I'll show it to you in a second, but the one platform you can create content and distribute it to a couple of displays, a group of displays in that area, and just in the cafeteria, canteen, in the lobby. But you can also set up alarms. So if there's a fire, you can just push one button, and then 100 displays across the whole school have a set guidelines or slides saying there's a fire, there's been an attack, go that way, go this way. And it's just all over the network. So
is there a translation service in that?
Yes. Well, we, do you mean languages? You mean? The solution we provide in about 7 or 8 languages. But do you mean the content?
Well, suppose I'm going to see Mas in Japan, and I don't speak Japanese. So there should be something in my check-in that says Les does not speak Japanese.
Ah, okay, yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, you could,
Much like the United Nations, plug it in here.
Yeah.
Person to person, room to room.
That's something that we can customize because the text field is customizable, what is received by message. And we can create a separate page with
Select your language.
yes, like select your language, or that would be a tiny bit of development, but not very, very much at all. It would be quite simple. It's definitely possible. I'm going to quickly go through because there's too many slides. But basically, common areas. We have a basic wayfinding that can be run through the signage, but we also have another high-end wayfinding solution that is a solution that came from Sony Mobile. That we sell as well called Nimway. I don't know if you have Nimway in the US. It's in advanced indoor positioning with lots and lots of tiny beacons across a whole premises, and then you know exactly where you are. You can walk up to digital floor maps and see where your colleagues are, where your next meetings are, and so on. We have different types of workflows and digital signage as well. So we want to provide a solution that works for the end customer, the end user really. So for example, we have something ultra simple all within the same solution. If for example there's someone who doesn't have very strong technical abilities, or they don't want to have to log into this the software background all the time, we have a solution where they can just put a PowerPoint into an email, send it to a predetermined address, and it just updates all the displays that's connected to that.
See, for me, that's where a translation service would come in handy.
Yeah. Because then you could already know, say if you have someone who's the receptionist or someone from the comms team managing a certain area, and they know there's guests coming who are speaking, they come from India, they want Hindi, then they can update that. It's a good point, actually. I'm going to mention that to my colleagues. Other forms, updating Excel, dropping it in, and then it updates all the text on pre-existing signage. We have the full signage creation where you can put RSS feeds, YouTube videos, audio, video, ticker tape, change everything, customize it completely. And also with our touch overlays, you can have interactive signage, so you can have actually kind of touching, playing with it, and then analyzing your face and emotions and so on. So, meeting spaces. I'll jump in and talk about the room booking because that's a little bit more relevant, and I'll show you a video from EADA, a school that we just did the installation with like a month ago, because they actually took on our room booking tablets, which run the same way as the reception, that you can customize the whole look and feel. So the idea there is that currently, you look around your office and there's a lot of meeting rooms that are booked, but no one's using them. You don't know if they're booked or not. It's all not very clear, and the workplace isn't really being used efficiently. So the book TS book tablets, you've got the LED lights, which you can see from a distance, is it booked or not. You can even go up, and if it is booked, you can book another meeting room across your whole premises from that tablet. You can check in, and if you don't check in, then the room gets released after 15 minutes. You could change that time. So it frees up space instead of having a lot of unused space.
Does it also turn off power?
Yes, so we can also have the, when you touch the tablet to start the meeting, you can power up the room, the devices in there. And we also have this RFID accessory that integrates to it. And that's where, I'll show it to you now, actually, the school in Spain, was another customization that came. They had the idea that they wanted to have a classroom check-in. So when kids come with their, it's like an NFC card, I think, and they wanted to make sure that they can register who's coming to the class and who's checking in, who's allowed. But then just with our
classes have a physical requirement for being there versus the online.
Yeah, unfortunately they don't work well because students cheat.
I know, I hear this, and I'm just like, you're spending time and money to go take this course, and why?
The issue that I think is potentially important here is, for example, we're an earthquake country. We get warnings I have to know immediately who's in the building,
Right.
where are they, is the
Mhm.
room empty, are there people stuck in elevators, you know, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. For me, that's the other side of space management.
Right. Yeah. That I'm not sure if this would have that from a tracking ability, but that app that we were talking about earlier does, so that you know, at least if they're registered. I mean, if you made it mandatory for all students to have, you know, the San Francisco Student Experience app, you now have them registered, and you can actually do a tracking to know if they're on campus or on campus. And
And you want them to, there are some women who, for example, have protective orders, and you want to be able to mask that.
yeah, yeah,
It'll just say anonymous X as opposed to the person's name,
Right.
so they can still
exactly.
follow the court order to recognize.
Right. Yeah, we have taken some measures to, you know, respect student privacy and not actually collect personal data information. It's just tied to, you know, user 1, user 2, or if you wanted them to have their student IDs as a log, that way you can track their activity.
The Nimway app that I mentioned before, that pinpoint, so it comes in how many students are in a lift and which lift they're in. It's buttons in the lift.
Mhm.
Yes, and the Nimway app.
Okay.
Yeah, the other solution has, in the app you can see where everyone is. You can even put safe zones. You don't want to be, because you can see down to the very detail in the bathroom. You don't want to share that kind of information. So you can select safe zones where people don't see where you are when you are, and you can visually see it all quite easily. I can show you a video of Nimway as well. I'm just going to quickly show you this.
I actually had a project I gave to a couple engineering students to put a thermal lens in an elevator. I don't want to know who they are. I just
Right.
want to know if there's a warm body in the space.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's interesting.
So you could do all of that with sensors as well. I'll show you another sensor that we're
Okay.
coming out with in February that can do all of that. This is just a solution that I said with the RFID. So that's one of our tablets. We've got them in 7, 15, 10, and 22 inch. And then if you integrate that in, they made that whole, the guy here is the AV manager. He created this whole interface just from our platform, you know. You can even do small sort of interactive elements like that. So he created that for the school, the AVA in Spain.
Yeah,
which is a
that's
business
cool.
school.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and I was amazed. We just gave it to him to test. He's like, yeah, I made that the whole design, the template of it. Okay, amazing. And so now it's great because they have this solution, but it's also great. We can now offer that to other customers. You know, they came up with the idea, and then we can then share that with other universities as well.
That's really great for if you have spaces like the new studios, right? With all that equipment, you're not going to want to have access 24/7 to everybody, but you may have a professor that grants a couple students that they trust or, you know, give approval to, and now you've been able to track. Okay, if anything goes wrong, I know that you two were in there, because not only did you have to have access to get in, and we tracked that, but you know, you were the only two given access. Or in your medical, you know, your new medical buildings, all to have lab space and equipment. That's so dangerous and expensive.
And it's strange. I can't control. It's weird. My laptop's doing funny things. So with the room booking tablets, the main usage is room booking. But and we have different sort of levels. You know, we can provide like this is ridiculous. Almost no one wants this, but we can do it. If we can do it, we offer it. We can create LED lights connected to the Outlook Exchange or Google Calendar or Office 365. So a lot of the data is just pulled from there. So whatever you can see on the tablet interface is whatever is in that system that we can pull, and you can customize where you want it. The name of the meeting room, whose meeting it is, what meetings are coming up next. That can all be on the interface of the tablet. And I'll show you that as well, how that works. Tablet RFID, the reader is another kind of step up of room booking, and we have an app that we're developing and designing right now. And that's going to be ready. I've got all the wireframe and stuff. It'll be ready in February. We have a big event every year in February, so that's what we're aiming to kind of more officially launch it.
That LED lighting actually would be great for the studios and the production when they're actually doing a production and they have the doors closed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like that on-air thing, right?
It says don't come in, you know?
Yeah, basically like stop, we are shooting.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can do that if required. Auditoriums, Ubicast is the solution that James was just talking about, which is we use it in a lot of ways actually. It's very flexible, but basically it's about capturing the content and then creating sort of this rich media that students can use, which is like indexed, it's interactive, and it's just really easy to integrate, kind of to use and play with. And you can create your own portal and so on, and it also then links with Vision Exchange. Our cameras, our projectors, I'm not going to talk about those. So TS Manage, this is the main sort of dashboard solution where it all happens, where we run it all from. The main kind of, it does so much so it's hard to explain, but there's no other solutions that can cover all these different areas like ours does. So with just one server license across the whole network, which is only 500 euros for life, and or you want in cloud, you can do a cloud service as well, that covers any location on a network. So for example, even here, this is on a swing, we call it swing network, which is also in our other Basingstoke office, which is also in our other Weybridge office. So I can connect them from to those. I can already then connect onto the network in the other office. So it kind of looks like this. And basically it controls all the network devices across the building. So these days you've got tablets, lights, projectors, and displays, which you can power them on, you can power them off, you can create content for them, you can see all the data about behind how long they've been on, how long they're being used. We started with just Sony Bravias and we've kind of rolled it out. So now we also are compatible with Samsung, LG, Philips, any PJ projector. So we want to kind of make it accessible to any, if there's a project in it, they're not doing a full new build, they've just still got their old displays, we can still provide the full control and solution for them. And even if they don't, we have like a small player that we can put behind any device anyway to facilitate all of that. And so from one dashboard, I could be here and I can control all the devices across all our buildings. I can tell them to turn off at 7 p.m., turn on at 7 a.m., which is huge kind of for the energy savings and cost savings, instead of having them left on across the whole building. I'm able to have a full view of all the devices here, so it's very comprehensive, but basically this is only showing a few of the meeting rooms, so I'm speaking to the back, but showing some of the devices in the different meeting rooms. So these are meeting rooms in Basingstoke. So here's a Bravia in G21. IP address, and I can even control it. If it was here, I can actually right now power, like turn the volume up and down. Someone would be in that room. Yeah, exactly. And you can schedule them and play out the content. You can set user rights if you only want someone to log in and have access to one small section.
Are you able to push firmware updates, anything like that, or collecting diagnostics about if there's an issue or problem?
Yes, the whole, one of the great things here is that you do get notifications as well. So here you can see the devices are, one. Yeah, it also saves you time in terms of, you can proactively fix also issues. You know, straight away here you can see that this one is off, this one is on. If this one's actually got an issue, it's got an error, it's not functioning correctly. You also get notifications from your devices as well. You can group them, like here we have our Basingstoke office, Sony Europe, so you could have, actually because we're all on Swing, you can control all of Sony Europe just with one 500 euro license. And then it's a license per device. So if you have one Brav in each meeting room, that's an extra license, and it depends on what you want to show on it. The cost, but it's always a lifetime cost, and it's up from 80 euros to 350 euros. So it's not huge cost. And in terms of the alarms, you can then also then push. Push then those alarms. Actually, I'll show you what the alarm looks like. So basically, all of the content is then created in all the signage content you create right from this tool itself. So, for example, if I pick, you can create all the like welcome in the lobby, update it, have news, and so on. You can have something like this is also for the room booking and the tablets, it's all built in here, so you don't have to have a separate room booking system. You don't have to have a separate virtual reception solution, which there aren't that many on the market. So just here, say for example, I wanted to then set up a new meeting room. Pick a template, order cancellation time, basically just give the name, so I say Pinewood.
So I have a cultural question for
Yep.
you. The normal distribution of equipment that someone comes into the campus with is a large distribution,
Yeah.
of what I'll call crap
Yeah.
to really good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So this would suggest to me that we publish to students, if you're coming here are the minimum requirements of any phone or tablet, or
Mm-hmm.
if you're gonna come to San Francisco State, you've gotta be at this point or better.
Mhm.
Okay. You essentially buy your stuff after you register.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
That may happen another 25 times. Apologies in advance if it does.
Do you mean more, so I was just thinking about your question, so you mean more if we have a mobile application for room booking and so on, to run that application for all the students to be able to have access to the same, yeah, you're right, you would have to have students up to a minimum, but basically it will run on Android and iOS, which I hope most students would have, but you're right, maybe not. It's not a given that all students have.
Well, I'm even surprised at the range of quality of equipment that faculty carry with them. I mean, it just ranges all over the place.
I was surprised you said students have 7 devices on average.
They typically have better equipment than the faculty.
Oh, yeah. That's,
Yeah.
I don't even have
Well, what we're talking about here is the OS, isn't it? Whether Android or iOS, they're running on that time.
Yes.
Not necessarily the device, but it's the device
Yes.
also whichever
Yeah.
version of the OS. So
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean the newest phone,
No.
as long as you're operating system.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You hope most are on one of those. I guess there's someone who's on some strange phone or an old Nokia.
But most of them will be using apps on
Yeah.
iOS already.
I'm going to quickly, because we don't have a huge amount of time, so I'm going to quickly go back and finish.
That's very good. Space management is just a difficult challenge.
Yes, it's tricky. I did have a little video I was going to show, but I think with time it's
It's not bad, it's only like a minute.
okay.
Some earplugs, I saw that. Yeah.
It's funny, actually, some of this was filmed at a university, Cranfield University, which is quite a big university in the UK, but that's all in Cranfield there, that shot, we went and shot it there. That's in Cranfield University. This is just a bit of a little sort of gimmick advertising video. It's not giving any detail, but you get the picture. The AV manager has control of all the devices, and it's a bit sort of sensationalized.
It's like the director.
I know, right? Yeah.
That's cute.
Most of the time, this was presented to AV and IT managers today. That's kind of speaking to them, you know.
So, just, I'm sorry, I'm full of questions. So
Yeah, no, please.
excuse me. 2 questions.
Yep.
One, any kind of assistance technology for people who are deaf hard of hearing, blind, that would echolocate them to a room or a space. Second question is whether that adaptive technology can be outfitted to a classroom.
What do you mean by that? In terms of outfitted to the classroom? Because you mean there's other existing technology, and would it then
Yes.
Communicate with it, or
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I register Les's hard of hearing with hearing aids. My card indicates that. I tap it, and it goes, Les, you need to sit in rows 1, 2, and 3, sections A, B, and C, and nowhere else. And then the adaptive technology works in those spots.
That is really good. There's a couple of good comments you've had today, actually. The language one, and also for the specific disabilities of hearing, or kind of sight and so on. We haven't actually explored that yet. So I can't say for sure. Yes, that's possible. Yes, that's not at present. We don't have that factored in. But with, like I said, with like we've done with the other customers like EADA and others, we're always happy to customize and develop when there's a need. And usually when there is a need that comes from end users, it's not just used as it that it's
widespread, And I will say San Francisco State University, of most universities that we work with, are very strictly guideline to ADA compliance and offering alternative abilities for students that have challenges. So we actually are putting a sandbox space on their campus in Lib 222 with Maggie Beers and that team under Brian. And so we're already talking about the types of solutions and technologies that we're putting in that space and specifically testing for how do we need to modify them for ADA compliance and things like that. So if you ever need a test bed, we're going to have a sandbox space on campus in the next couple months that we'll be able to do some testing with things like
that could
TIOS.
That could be really good. That could be an option.
And SK ACE is part of that EVLA team, again, from Japan, but in America, to try to develop these solutions for education specifically. So that could be a really good kind of triangular bridge for us.
And that's the exciting thing we're doing. One example here, Tom's going to go next, is these are software products. They don't have a lid. They don't have, it's not like a product where we traditionally with the camera, 9 to 12 months before you see a different type of data. These are living and breathing. There are teams constantly having to put security, kind of updates to the bug fixing. That's the nature of stuff. So that roadmap is like,
well, just to show that actually, we've got constant development, and I know I'm running out of time, but we've got constant development. Like every day, we have a development plan that's going on with our developers in the Netherlands. So we just started in 2017 with TIOS Management. We added the room booking. We added the virtual section from that project. TIOS Connect is a wireless screen sharing, which I was going to again show today, but we couldn't. We have a remote. You can tap your mobile phone on an NFC tag when you enter the room. You can control devices. The app is coming, but we're very, very quickly progressing with this kind of vision in our proposition. And we have the voice and this sensor, which is a universal sensor, which covers occupancy, temperature, lighting, humidity, noise, air quality. This is just something that we thought, let's put everything in one instead of, and then from there we can create any sort of solution that we can on top of it. We've already got that created, and we'll show it at ISC in February. And then again, we'll add more to it. This is a bit more of a high-end version of the voice, which is more kind of medium control and basic task. This is going to be a bit more complex kind of task, and like note-taking and communication. And then as well, we're looking a little bit more into AR, VR, but that's a bit of a sort of untested and unsure space when it comes to corporate meetings and so on. I know it's bigger in education. So we have developers constantly working on that, so we could look it up. But I know I haven't been taking notes, but I have been writing them down. So I'll check them with my colleagues as well to see what's possible, what's not, and I'll send you.
That'd be great. And if you could also send a presentation to me, I can always extract and share as well.
I'm not going to look at these over just quickly. Like these are just some of the youth projects. We've won quite a few education ones in the past couple of months, but the EADA one is in Spain, was a big one. Denmark, funnily enough, we've won a lot in the Nordics in terms of the TIOS education projects. The new campus in the VUC school, Napster campus is another one. Most of these are room booking. It's signage in the room booking, which they're going for. And by room bookings, it's not always booking, or it could just be check-in, it could just be a notification, this is your room, something like that. They all differ a little bit how they're using it. Wales, we have a lot of vision exchange in there actually, but they also have TLS now for a lot of signage across the campus. I know, sorry that was a bit rushed, but I know the time. Any other questions before I hand over?
That's great.
Yeah, the thing that you're getting at that I'm really attracted to is at some point the customization has to be user dependent and not space dependent, right?
Yeah.
So that in a class where I've got 35 students, 15 of them from 6 different countries, the room senses that and adjusts to the device rather than having the student have to adjust all their equipment.
That's where we see it going. It's how it's going to get there, but that's exactly it. You walk into a room, it knows what time of day it is, how people are kind of feeling, what they're ready for, and it should adapt to how whoever's coming into the room, and not you adapting to the room.
Right.
It's the same, I guess, with teaching. When you have technology, you don't want the teacher to have to then, or the students have to adapt to it. The room should be adapting to how they want to teach and learn and so on. That's exactly where it's going. It's how do we get there and along the way. And it's a mix of AI, it's a mix of the sensors, it's a mix of putting a lot of systems together and then crunching the data and then pulling out a few simple kind of solutions.
Very nice. Very nice.
Carl, thank you. That's okay. Tom.
Yes. Right. At some point, I'm going to get you to swivel that. Points at everybody.
That's within my technical capability. I can do that.
This happened last week as well on my laptop, and it was very exciting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist it around.
You can try and fix it on that laptop, but I haven't been able to.
Last time we tried that last week at a conference, and we had this exact same situation where it had stopped mirroring.
Yeah.
And we tried to fix it and made it far, far worse. So I'm now very afraid.
We had like 10 minutes for it on stage, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that was great fun.
Those are good times, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that was a failure.
So I'm going to talk primarily about something called XDCam Air. XDCam Air, for my part, is one of the most exciting things that Sony has developed in years on the media production side. What XDCam Air fundamentally is about turning a camera like this one, or a camera like any other one, into an Internet of Things created device. So what we're looking at is taking a step back from the hardware of a camera and thinking about why someone has a camera. And there's an old trope about nobody buys a drill, they buy holes. So what are the holes that the camera has? In a sort of weird, twisted way that Japan would not enjoy me using, but what you're buying is pictures, but these days there's a lot of other aspects to a camera. Now that could be a full resolution picture, the main file that you're shooting, obviously, but most of our cameras these days will also shoot a proxy. They'll shoot a lighter version of a file. There is metadata in there. How would we want to work with that? And then into some of the stuff that Teos is touching. How are you using it and how much and why? Metrics and statistics and things like that that can enable you to get more out of your investments and plan future investments better. Resource allocation. Where is something? Why is it doing what it is doing and who is using it for what and for how much of which day? So there's a range of different pieces of information beyond just the pictures that are recorded that exist within a camera. And XDCam Air's reason for being is to make any of those different elements of the camera available to whoever needs them at whatever time they are needed. So it is about acceleration. There is a streaming element to it. It's a very small element of the whole package. We can get streams out of them. It works really well. But if we have a look at the whole thing, we don't have an interface that looks like this. And if we go to live, we can have a look at all the different cameras in our pool, and we've got one of them connected here. You can see we've got lots and lots of different cameras attached to this service, but this one here is the connected one, and that's that one just there. And if you can swivel the laptop around,
This is my bit.
there's a bit of a delay on it, but that is then a YouTube output from it. So this camera has no infrastructure on it. Everything is built in apart from this 4G stick. That's all we've got. There is no backpack, there is nothing else. It's all in the camera now. And we're extracting that stream, but it's going straight up into the cloud. And that's great, that's simple. But once it's in the cloud, we can start to do all kinds of clever things with it. So we can see, for example, where is our camera? We can see we're on Goldfinger Avenue, exactly here, and that is Goldfinger Avenue running out the front there. All of the roads are named after James Bond things, as I'm sure Matt mentioned. So we can see where a camera is. Now, if we think of that in terms of, for example, a newsroom planning who's going to cover what, where are their freelancers, where are their cameras, where are their trucks, how do they get that person to that story the fastest? Who's best, who's going to be able to make that work? And you see people creating really sort of new thinking type newsroom management systems that integrate incoming media from traditional sources like cameras and feeds and things like that with Twitter feeds and with Facebook information and all of this other stuff. Systems like WolfTech, for example, and Anova Open Media are starting to move in that direction as well. Being able to have all of the tools that you need in one place and having real-time information about those becomes incredibly useful. So we can then go live from one of these cameras, wherever it might be on Earth, and we can then decide to send it to anywhere we want. So out here I have all of my different transmitters, for example. I've got some hardware, because you might well want to bring your stream into a proper infrastructure, an SDI-based infrastructure, to brand it and send it out as you like. If we go hardware to hardware, we have a hardware decoder for this, which will give you SDI, like that server in Prague. We can then do that with a 1.5 second delay from anywhere to anywhere on Earth, which...
Did I hear you right? 1.5 seconds?
1.5 seconds, anywhere to anywhere. So we do demonstrations at NAB, for example. We connect cameras in our Basingstoke office, in Japan, in New York, and we can pick any of them at any time and go live from them, which is an incredibly powerful thing. It's not the same quality as a truck, but sending a truck out is going to cost you $5,000 per story, at least. And you don't have 500 trucks. On election day, you don't know who's going to finish counting first. You don't know loads of stuff. You might need to go live from somebody else. And this enables people to do that because it's the simplest example of how we can take the resource out of the camera when we need it and send it to where we need it. Because it's up in the cloud, we can use that scalable processing power. And we can say, I actually don't just want this in my station. I want this to go to my social media team. I want them to be able to send it to a further 3 different destinations. I want 2 backups, and I want this sent to another bureau, and I, by the way, want to resell this to another broadcaster in another region who we have some kind of financial deal or content exchange agreement with. So all of that can be done, and the only piece of hardware we're talking about, you can, the interface is a little fiddly, but you can run it on a phone. We're working on improving the mobile UI for this.
Depends how big your thumbs are, doesn't it?
Yeah, and if they're my thumbs, that's not going to happen. But more delicately produced people might be able to do a better job than I can. But the only hardware we're really talking about here is that 4G stick. It's some connectivity, which is simple and easy to get hold of and fairly ubiquitous. And with that in mind, if we think about the connectivity that's available today and what that's likely to be about, Stuart mentioned earlier about 5G. At 5G, you're talking about 10,000 subscribers simultaneously with a gig up and down wherever they are all the time. At that point, this is a pretty realistic way of going full live all the time. You won't want a bulky backpack, you won't want 8 SIMs, you won't want any of those things. You'll want it tight and compact and simple is the main thing. And again, for the operator, someone can switch this camera on and they can go and shoot the pictures. Everything else can be arranged from elsewhere. Which means that if you've got inexperienced people, as we discussed, was a problem that's very, very simple to do. They can stick it on a camera. We've got remote control functions, not on this one because the firmware is not right, but we have a range of those as well. Now, that's the streaming part, but like I say, it's only a very small part of it. Metadata is a really, really exciting part of it. I'm keen on metadata. Not everybody is. My wife doesn't care to hear me talk about metadata that much. But so are these things. We have some stories on here. So for a very long time, particularly in the news world, there's been a big gap in the workflow, because there is a planning process that happens over here, and the person who plans a story then calls somebody up or whatever. They'll make a little story in a system, maybe an iNews or an EMPS or something like that, and a work order will be created and somebody will be dispatched to go and shoot it, maybe the same person, maybe a different person, and then they'll shoot it and they'll come back and they'll go, right, I now have to take all of these clips and put them in the right place and make sure that the right people have access to that. And that's because we haven't, until now, had a sensible way to link up the creation of the story with a camera. There are two separate sources where this story begins. There's where the planning begins and where the media is created. And there has never been a link between those two in a sensible way before. Here we can do exactly that. We can take a story. These are synchronized much earlier with things. You can see I was a bit bored. So Great Car Parks of Britain, Volume 1. But I can then assign that to my camera. And I can send it out there. Actually, it's already on there. Just double check. Yeah. So I can then assign that to my camera, and I can activate it in camera, and every single clip I shoot will then have that name. It will have all of the metadata associated with that story, which means that the opportunities for automation beyond that, if we then couple that with the idea that this camera is shooting a proxy, a broadcast quality proxy file, if you need to get it out quickly, that will then sit there shooting clips back as we're working all day long. So if we look, for example, at the asset window here, this is where clips that we shoot. So I picked the title, "Be Sure to Wear Some Flowers in Your Hair," given where you're from. But this was shot minutes ago. Hold on, it's buffering, it's been pre-set up. But this was shot minutes ago while Carl was talking, presenting there. So these things have then just automatically been uploaded and landed in my system. Yeah. And can then, based on the metadata that they're associated with, be presented to anyone. Now, one thing that's been mentioned a couple of times is API. APIs are incredibly important to this kind of thing, because every broadcaster I speak to has one big problem already, and that is that they have too many interfaces and too many systems, making things complicated. If they do audits of how many applications they have, a single newsroom might have 200-300 different applications with different tools. And they don't want more of those. This is useful functionality, but the really clever bit is that we can hide all of these functions within the systems they're already using, as long as those systems are sensibly set up. So within our Hive newsroom system, for example, we are able to use the same interface we'd use for ingesting any other live feed, but we can see every single camera in our entire fleet as an available source to go live from, without having any extra steps. We can sit, and we were demonstrating this last week actually at the News Exchange show. We were demonstrating it at IBC as well, an integration between Air and Hive that means that an editor can be sat putting together a story, and clips will just be appearing in their bin, and they will be 10-15 seconds behind camera,
so
depending on how long
the
the
old language, if I could, and what you're saying is both the film and all support data is addressable to one spot or X spots.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, predominantly built, engineered, and being sold at the minute to news organisations, news broadcasters. I've mentioned global networks before. But if you think of anywhere, maybe a film school or a media academy where you've got 100 of users who might want to repool this camera might have 10 different users in a week, where every time they use it to shoot something, you want to go to your computer and open the folder with your name and your content there. That's the part of actually using that metadata schema in that respect. Journalists need to do it to track stories, so they're all in one place. You could use it for other purposes in that respect as well.
And I'm assuming that the quality doesn't deteriorate with the number of addressable locations.
No, I mean, if you're... It depends a bit if we're talking about proxies or if we're talking about streaming. They're very separate workflows. We can do things with high-res as well, but no, it doesn't. The stream will go from the camera to our decoders in the cloud, where they are decoded. From there, it's essentially straight data transfer to wherever, so it's all ones and zeros from there. The degradation would happen if there's a drop in the quality of the connection, in which case it will scale the bandwidth. In a streaming context, if you're doing proxies, which is not quite real time, but not far behind, if the connection slows down, the file takes slightly longer to transfer, but the quality is uniform the whole way through. So, yeah, there are a huge number of different ways that we can use this stuff, and every customer I talk to has different ideas about how they would apply it. So this window here, the transfer window, we're actually able to browse a camera. Even if it's not automatically uploading, I can look into a camera and I can see which clips are available on there. So we also had in the Hive integration example a list of uningested files, so that someone putting together a story knows that the guy is still out there, and they can see that that camera is still active. So they can even see the location of the camera if that's enabled. Some news stories, that's a good thing. If they're off hiding with the rebels in Syria, that's not a good thing. But operator can always switch that off. But it means that they can see that there is more coming in, which is very exciting. But you can see also there's a grayed out high-res transfer. That's because I don't have the high-res card plugged into the camera at the moment. But we can use this window via the API to do some really clever stuff. One of them being that we can assemble a sequence, a timeline,